Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we've got a triple review for you. We're going to be looking at a few new products or new to me products, some are brand new actually, and kind of give you an overview of them, and you can see if they're going to be right for you or just duplicate something you already have. So we're going to be looking at these new stamps, the Curio Stamps from Stampendous, RENDR no show-through marker paper, and also the new design markers from Premier by Nicole, which is the proprietary brand of AC Moore. I do know some stores have it online, so like I think Blitzy carries a lot of AC Moore stuff there, like I think somehow affiliated. So we're going to take a look at all of these things. So the first thing I just want to mention are these stamps. They stamp beautifully. They're designed so that not only do they stamp well, see the rubber's closely trimmed so you're not going to get ghosting, but also they're on a black painted wood mount, and they have an indexed kind of sticker on the front, and they're beautiful for displaying or also referencing if you want to color just like that. They look cute on a shelf, so when you're not using your supplies, at least they can be decorating your space, and I think that's adorable. These feature the artwork of Laurel Birch, which is a very popular artist, especially among fabric crafters, and they're just cute. They're lovely, and they stamp really well, which is the most important thing. And we're going to be coloring this little bird that's also from the Curio collection from Stampendous. I'll put links to whatever I can down below. I'm not sure if those are available for purchase yet, but they will be shortly if they're not. This is the RENDR paper, and I saved the sleeve so that you could see how it's spelled and how it looks, because you might be searching RENDR like R-E-N-D-E-R, but this is what it looks like. And I got the hardbound, I think it's 5x7 or 6x8. Or maybe 5x8.5 sketchbook. It's a pretty small one. It was one of the less expensive ones, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna like the paper. I'm really glad I got the smaller one, because although this is a nice paper and a nice sketchbook, I don't think it's great for the way that I work particularly. So the first thing I did was I took these markers and I swatched them out on the paper, and I tried to get them to blend with the closest colors that I had. So AC Moore did send me a few of these markers because I asked them to. I was very curious about their new line of markers, and so I took the two kind of color friends that they sent of each color, and I tried blending them, and they weren't blending, and I wasn't sure if it was this paper or if it was the markers. I grabbed the clear blender and I tried to lift some of the color, and it lifted a bit, but it wasn't lifting a lot like I normally get with the marker paper I usually use. And then I tried coloring. I first tried coloring the way I usually do, dark to light with this dog, and it just wasn't blending. It looked very amateurish. So then what I did for the cat here was I took my darker markers here and I scribbled them on a tile, and then I used the lighter counterpart to pick up the ink and then to apply it, and I got a really nice blend that way, especially on the cat's ears, tail, and face, and I was really pleased with that. I find with a RENDR paper it's really hard to get a smooth background, especially if you're trying to color around stuff like I was with these squares. Where I stopped, you can see a line there where I had to go back in and start again, and it became more apparent as I started trying to overlap colors, like on this face here. I normally will go in with my darker colors, pull in some you know, the lighter tones, and go in with the highlights with a clear blender, overlay some blush, and anytime I tried to overlay another color, I was getting really bad watermarks. And I think that if you're using this paper, it's not great for blending. It doesn't bleed through though. I mean, they were absolutely true in their claims. There is no bleeding through, but I think it's more for folks that are really deliberate when they sketch, and they just go in and they put down the right marks and they're good to go. If you want to fuss and blend and fiddle with it a bit, I feel like it doesn't work that well. So here I'm going to show you a comparison of how the RENDR paper blends versus how my Nina blends, and you can see that, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit for you here. You can see that with the RENDR paper, just using two pale shades of yellow, I could still clearly see the line where I got it to blend really well with the Nina. And then with these blues, 1, 2, 3 blues, you can clearly see where I stopped coloring with each color. And with the Nina, I got a nice blend there. And then even taking a huge jump like I did with that red to orange to yellow, on the RENDR, there's clear lines where here I actually got that to blend, even though it was a really big jump. So this is the Nina Classic Crest 80 pound in Solar White, and I pay about $40 for a ream of 250 sheets, 8.5 by 11 sheets. And I can't remember what I paid for this book, but I think I probably paid around $10, and it was a deep discount too. So you know, it just depends on what you're looking for in a paper. If you absolutely want a sketchbook that doesn't bleed through, but you don't care about blending, then that could be for you. Otherwise, I think that you might do better off to just get some marker paper if you want it in a sketchbook form. So as far as blending the little bird here on this paper, on the render, since it wasn't giving me much leeway, I didn't even try that dark blue on this bird here. I went with some of the lighter Premier markers that I had from the first release, and like the bullet and the chisel tip ones, and I primed the whole thing with a clear blending marker, and then I went, you know, section by section, and I still couldn't get a really great blend. I mean, it was okay, but it wasn't that great. On this one, I primed the whole thing with a clear, and then I did all my dark blues, all my medium blues, and all my pale blues, and I got a better blend, even though I was like not working section to section, which I thought was pretty good. And then on this one, I didn't prime it, but I did work section to section, and I really liked the blending that I got there. And that's kind of what we're going to do today. And you're actually going to see that I actually started this because I got to this point in the last version of this tutorial, and I realized that I didn't white balance my camera, so everything was looking a little off. So that's why the tail's already colored. So we're going to start off. I'm going to grab the colors here that I'm going to use, and I'm going to use this this sapphire blue and denim and waterfall. The waterfall is from the first release, and then I'm going to be using 3 colors from the first release for the beak, but this will just give you a good idea of how these work. So on these markers, you have got a silver band on the chisel end, and you have no band on the brush end. The markers have a little tab on it so they don't roll, but they are a round barrel. They're pretty comfortable to hold. And I'm going to start with this dark sapphire blue. The sapphire blue in this range does not match the sapphire blue in the previous range. The color system is completely different. So just to let you know there, it can be difficult to figure out if you're buying duplicate colors between the lines. And I did reach out to AC Moore to see if they had a color chart. They didn't yet, but maybe it will come. I'm not sure. I guess I could go buy all the markers and make a color chart, but I don't know if I'm ready to do that. And then I'm going to go in with this lighter one, and I'm going to use the bullet tip here, but there's also a chisel tip on the originals. So the originals have a bullet and a chisel. I like the chisel on the originals better, but the bullets seem to be about the same on both markers, and I'm just using that to blend. Now, sometimes if you do have a hard time blending, going in with a chisel tip helps. This one has a chisel tip like the Prismacolor markers, which is a tri-nib. You can get many lines from that same nib. You can go on the tip of it, you can go with the broad side of it. There's like 3 different line weights you can get, which I think is really nice on the original. And that's how I go around and do that. If you want to prime an area, what you do is you would take your clear marker and you would just go through and you would color the whole area, and what that will do is it just gives you a little more blending time, especially if you're working with really pale areas. Like these areas here are going to be really light, so it's just a trick that you can use. I find that working dark to light is quicker, and I like the results I get better, and maybe that's just because it's how I'm used to working, but you can try it several ways and see what you like best. So I just want a little bit of dark in this final area. And then I'm going to go in with my medium, and you can see those colors do blend really well together when you have that surface primed a little bit. And I can just kind of go in and tap on a little bit of fluff and add a little shadow there. Then go in with my lighter color, which is the original. And I just go over the whole area that I'm trying to lighten up and then just pull out the color a little bit more. For me, that works really well. But you can, you know, everyone has their own way of doing it. A lot of people like to go light to dark, and that's fine. But even watercolor, I prefer to go dark to light. That's just, I like to get those dark values in so I don't get too timid with my coloring. And then if you need to soften anything, you can go back in with your clear and you can soften it. Now these markers are great for blending. I find them nice for coloring, but I would use a light touch. These are not great for brush lettering. I don't do brush lettering, however, I can tell you they're not going to be that great for that, just because you don't want to put the type of pressure on the nib like you would with a like a Copic that's got a foam tip to it, because you will break down the tip. The tip is a fiber tip, the brush tip is a fiber tip, so it's just not going to withstand that. I think any comments that I've seen about fiber nib markers, I haven't seen anything about these online, but the comments that I see on the fiber tip markers where people are really upset with it, I think they're doing a lot of the brush lettering. Oh, I want to have a little of that darker color in here. They're doing the brush lettering, and that just takes a lot. You need a lot more flexibility in your nib for that, and these are not going to give you that. You're going to be disappointed, and so you'll definitely want to spend a little bit more money for a Copic. Or some other marker that gives you that effect. But I think that looks really cute. I'm not going to bother blending the feet because they're so little. But you know, that's pretty easy. Of course, I'm just doing a really quick look there, but it gives you an idea of how to use those markers and how they will work with the other markers that you have. I've really never found any alcohol pens that didn't work with other alcohol pens, so I don't think that's a real big issue. So I've had these markers I got some about a little over a year ago because they came in this gorgeous marker bag that they had on special at AC Moore, and they still do have those, and they were still on special, ironically, the last time I went, but they came with like 24 markers, and previously I had bought a few open stock just to test them out. So these I personally purchased, and the new ones with the brush tips, they were sent to me from AC Moore. And then I, of course, noticed some similarities in this line of markers and some other markers that I have used. So here I swatched out the new Nicole Premier markers, and I started to notice, that looks familiar. These all are looking familiar. So B4, that looks just like the B4 from my Studio 71 markers, which I absolutely love. The B9 looks just like the B9 markers from my Studio 71. The B14 looks just like the B14 from my Studio 71. B3 looks just like the B3 from my Studio 71. And some of these I also are the same as the Blick Illustrator markers. So all the markers from the Studio 71 line, the Blick Illustrator line, and the Nicole Premier brush marker line match. Not these guys. These are on a totally different system, but the nice thing about this, well, first, like when I first got the Studio 71 markers, loved them. I was so excited to find such a cheap brush marker. And then I saw the Blick Illustrator, and I wasn't going to get them, but I had several people request a review, and they were on sale, so I grabbed the set of 24. And then I was bummed because almost all of these markers were the same as ones from the Studio 71 line. And then, but then I realized, well, the Blick ones are not available anymore. I think they were just a one-time thing. Not to be confused with the Blick Studio markers. Those are a different thing altogether. Those are great, but they're completely different from the Illustrator line. So then I was thinking, geez, I wonder if these Nicole Premiers will be the same, and looks like they are the same exact line, like the B14. Any color that overlaps has the same number is the same in that line as well. The R2, which is that pretty blush color, they're the same. Also got that in the Studio 71 set. So, and also another thing I noticed was the hashtag coloring. These have even the same barrels. The difference is the hashtag coloring sets have a bullet and a brush, not a chisel and a brush. And I'll show you the Blick markers. These seem to use the same exact barrel as the Premier ones as well. So if you maybe got a set of the Blick Illustrators and you were bummed that they're now discontinued and you can't get them anymore and you can't buy individuals, you can go into your local AC Moore and you can pick up just the colors that you need. And I'm excited because I can look at my swatch here, because I swatched them all on the same piece of paper, so I would have them together. I can say, well, let's see, I wish I had a medium brown. I can look at my colors, I can go into the store and I can make sure I'm not buying something that I already have, which is useful for me. I like to be able to replace individual markers and not have to order them online if I don't have to, and I can go to AC Moore and just get that marker if I want to. But I did want you to know that if you already have the Studio 71 line or the Blick Illustrators, that the colors are going to be the same. If you have a BG14, it's going to be the same BG14 as in your Premier markers. So keep that in mind so you don't buy doubles, so you buy things that will enhance your collection and not just duplicate what you already have. Now the Studio 71 markers, their barrels are a little bit different. They're rectangle, not triangle. Gosh, I know my shapes. I graduated kindergarten. But the tips are the same. So, you know, you've got that chisel on the silver indexed end just like you do there. And you have the brush tip. So these, like I mentioned before, are the fiber tips. I haven't had any bad luck with the fiber tips, but I can kind of feel, like I had a blender pen that was that fiber tip, and it dried out and it got really frayed at the end. So, and I was using it pretty aggressively, kind of like you might if you had a brush lettering hobby, and I noticed that was fraying. So these markers from AC Moore are very juicy. I haven't had any fraying yet, but you definitely do not want to like be bending that tip over like you would if you were doing some crazy brush lettering acrobatics. So, you know, if you use them for coloring, I think you're going to be in great shape. Their quality of the brush tip is not as good as a Copic tip or the Blick Studio marker, not the Illustrator that I showed you here, but the other ones that they sell individually on their website, because it's not the foam tip, it's not the super flexible tip. Now let's get into pricing, because I know you're going to wonder what these cost. These cost $3.99 a piece, regular price, and I do have the prices for their sets. The 12 packs are, the 6 packs are $20, the 12 packs are $39.99, the 24 packs are $79.99, and the 48 packs are $159.99. And of course they're new, so they're on special at the stores. I didn't see them. I was actually at AC Moore last weekend because my daughter was working on a school project and we needed some parts and pieces, but I never made it down that aisle. So I haven't seen them on display yet. I think those set prices are pretty high, to be absolutely honest. I think that like the Studio 71s sell for $2 a marker. I think that's pretty fair. That's their regular price. And I think the 48 set of Studio 71, the regular price on those, I'm thinking is around $50. So you're paying around $1 a marker. Maybe they're a little bit more, maybe that was a sale price, but I think $150 for 48 of the design markers is high. You would be much better off, in my opinion, not to, you know, downplay these markers or say they're not high quality, but if you're going to spend that kind of money, I think you'd be better off with the Blick Studio marker set that's got the foam tip, not the Illustrator, but the Studio, because I just don't think that they're worth that much. Nice markers, I would say if you can get them on sale for $2 a pop, or, you know, get a set of 48, if you could pay around $1.50 to $2 a marker, I think they're a good buy. If you're spending more than that, I would think twice, unless you're just like replacing one marker at a time. But if you're going to make a big investment in a set, I think that $159 is too much for 48 of these markers, because the tip is a fiber tip. If the tip was a foam tip, I would say go for it. And I wanted to show you the chisel tip side by side with one of the chisel tips from the original Premier markers, and you can just kind of see the quality. Like, this is actually what like a Copic would have on their chisel tip. I really like these chisel tips, like the Prismacolor ones, because you get so much versatility from the line. I'm just going to scrap a paper here. I'm just going to just kind of show you. So let me let's get a darker color you can actually see. That would probably be more helpful. So like with this, you've got like that, and actually this one feels a little dry. You got the thin line, and you've got that line, which isn't bad, and then of course you've got the brush that's not, you know, you don't get a super tiny line. You almost get a tinier line if you're working on the end of the chisel tip, but on the design markers here, the original design markers, you get, I feel like a much more responsive end. This is awful marker paper for this. I don't even know what this paper is, but it's not very good for this. But I don't know, I just like the way that marker feels, that chisel tip feels versus the other one. But you know, it's completely personal preference. And then you get the bullet tip. This is not, oh, this is like sketch paper. This is like, you know, not the best for this type of marker. But I just wanted to kind of show you that. I happen to like the chisel tip that are like the Prismacolor And that's what the original design markers have versus the one kind of like the Copic has. But they're all fine. It's just a personal preference thing. So, you know, I just wanted to confirm that these colors were in fact the same color range as the Studio 71, Artist Loft, Blick Illustrator, hashtag coloring lines, so that if you do like those markers, it seems like the tips are the same too. I personally haven't used Artist Loft, but I did check out the color selection last time I was at Michael's, and yeah, it's the same colors as all these others, and other people that have used both the Artist Loft and Studio 71 said they're the same. So, you know, use this as a replacement for those markers, or, you know, definitely go for it if you're looking for a cheap brush tip marker. Just don't overpay for them and you'll be fine. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.